Spit bars, I stand behind mine. Yeah. Sentences I serve, maximize guidelines. My lawyer can't give me his advice when these beasts that I murder carry mandatory minimums of life. Yikes. In case you didn't get the point, we spit bars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Maximum Sentence, where there's conviction behind the bars. I'm your man, AJ Throwback. Great to be here with you on another awesome Wednesday, where we are finishing up our breakdown of Senior Week Forever, the B-side to my latest single, Take 37. But before we go any further, if this is your first time checking out any of my content here on YouTube, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to that YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification so whenever I go live, post a new video, premiere a new video, you'll be among the first to know. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some of these awesome comments from our Maximum Sentence faithful. Alright, so the first comment comes from my sis, Ansley Jukebox Joy. She says, another dope breakdown, love the stories here. This is in response to the last video about Senior Week Forever, so definitely appreciate that comment right there. Next comment comes from my brother Mike Mountain, who says, true, the Blunder Years is a good name to call the years from 18 to 25 because that's when the human mind gets fully formed. Oh shucks, you just said it, LOL. I think he made that comment while he was watching and then realized that I said it, but I definitely appreciate that comment, my brother. One big black man on IG, he says, my 20s, that's a deep dive. You need to have me on your show for that. And that's in response to one of the snippets from the last episode of about Senior Week Forever. So definitely appreciate that. And the final comment comes from Nay_Ray 001 on IG. She says, I don't know, maybe it was my parents that instilled in me that at some point I would have those responsibilities and I needed to ensure that I had a career to provide me with the things that I was accustomed to. Yes, I party, but I also chose a career that would support my partying. I hear that, my sister, and I thank you so much for that comment, and thanks to everybody for all of the awesome comments, all of the support, all of the likes, the shares. A lot of people shared a lot of my thoughts from the snippets that I posted from the last episode. And if you have not listened to Senior Week Forever, please make sure that you get the single, which is the B-side of Take 37, which is out right now. And you can go to my website, bammllc.net/music. Once again, that's bammllc.net/music. Or you can go to my Bandcamp page if you're a Bandcamp person, which is ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. Once again, that's ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. Let's go ahead and get into some of these lines from this third verse. So there's a part where I say, now you're stressed and overeating, your weakness exposed so you're weak and turn to seeking the sweet sins, old Hennessy, weed and freaking. When we hit the road, man, as fast as we was speeding, we should be in a whole Bobby Hurley float, 24, kinda early though, to have the right presence of mind to sacrifice our worldly robes. So now you're stressed and overeating, your weakness exposed. So as I said, I believe it was in the last episode, I talked about the weight gain that I dealt with. When I first got to school, I was around 160 pounds. When I left school, I was over 230 pounds. And it was a struggle to really get that weight off because I was dealing with a lot coming out of school. It was kind of the stress of trying to get a job. It was the stress and a bit of depression that I dealt with after a really bad breakup with the girl that I was with during my senior year of college. All I'm gonna say is it was a lot of arguments, a lot of ready to fight, a lot of crying, a lot of drinking, a whole lot of nonsense that went behind that whole situation. It was just one of those things where I was stressed out from that. I was stressed out from work. There was a period when I got home where I started losing weight. I started walking more, I started exercising, especially because when I first started working for Councilmember Adrian Fenty when he was in Ward 4, I didn't have a car. And so those first couple of months that I was working for the council, I was on the bus everywhere. I was walking everywhere. So between eating better, being back home, so I ended up losing probably about a good 28 pounds. I was a lot closer to being more like me, but I still wasn't where I really wanted to be because I was still over 200 pounds, but I was closer to 200 pounds than I was when I first got home. But it was the stress of the job. It was a lot of staying up late at night, not really getting a whole heck of a lot of sleep. A lot of long hours at work, a lot of partying, a lot of drinking, a lot of eating. When you go places, especially when we were going out of town, a lot of times we go to New York, we hang with the homies, we go on places like Dallas BBQs and wherever else that we could go where like we could just really just stuff our faces. And if we went over somebody's house, you better not try to sit there and say, oh, I'm on a diet, or oh, I'm gonna watch what I eat. They laugh you out the building. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where like all of these things combined really just kind of sort of made this cocktail for self-destruction in a lot of ways, and really thinking that I'm still in college and carrying a lot of those bad habits into the real world now. And the thing is, for me, I didn't just have one job, I had two jobs. So I was working for the DC Council, but I was also freelance reporting for the Washington Informer. And so trying to really balance those two jobs out, like I would go to work 5 days out of the week, but a lot of times I ended up having to cover Wizards games on Tuesdays. So I would do Wizards games on Tuesdays and trying to balance that, trying to balance the social life. Because for most of the time that I worked for the DC Council, I didn't technically have a girlfriend. I had girls that I was talking to, but I didn't have an actual bona fide, like this is my girl for most of the time that I worked at the council, except maybe like the first, I say 3 months. But then me and the girl ended up breaking up. But outside of that, it was a lot of trying to really have a good time, trying to live it up. And then I think about the line, man, as fast as we were speeding, we should be in a hole. Bobby Hurley flow. That line, or those two lines, are really powerful because I'll be honest, when I first got my driver's license, I was the granny of the crew. Like I really didn't do too far over the speed limit. A lot of times it was 10 over the speed limit for me. And it's kind of that way now that I have a son. You know, I try not to drive but so fast with him in the car. And it's been like that with me since he's been a baby. And so I had friends that it was a little bit more reckless abandon when it came to driving. I mean, it'd be like driving 100 miles an hour in a 65 because it was that whole thing of I'd rather drive fast than drive slow and get in an accident. You know, one of my homies, he was big on that. He always said, when the moment that I decided to do closer to the speed limit is when I got in an accident. When I drove fast, I ain't never got in an accident driving fast. Irony. But still, it's like that whole thing of really just kind of sort of living on the edge. And the reason why I referenced Bobby Hurley, because if I'm not mistaken, Bobby Hurley got into a really bad car accident. I want to say maybe while he was at Duke or when he got drafted into the NBA. Either way, but he got into a really bad car accident and he barely survived the accident because I want to say he was speeding. And it was one of those things, and I forget how old he was when he got into the accident. He might have been like 24 when the accident happened. But the reason why I said 24 is because around that time, 22, 23, 24, once again, we in the Blunder Years. We in the later part of the Blunder Years. And for me, this is one of the most critical parts of the Blunder Years because I'm just coming out of college. I'm just really getting into the workforce. One of my homies that I used to hang out with more so at that time, I mean, we're still friends, but we were really hanging tough at this time. We were making trips to New York. We was going to shoot pool, all this type of stuff. Shout out to my homie Mike Jones, the real Mike Jones. That's what I always call him. He's actually a year older than me. And so he was working before I started working. So he had a good 2 to 3 years on me in the workforce. Me, I'm just now coming into the workforce. So I'm just really learning how to navigate the whole thing of having a job, and trying to have a social life, all while living at my mama's house. You know what I'm saying? So there's a different set of responsibilities that I needed to wait out while I was living with her and try to save money and try to do all these other things. Bringing in the whole Blunder Years thing, that's why I said Bobby Hurley flow, 24. Kind of early though, to have the right presence of mind to sacrifice our worldly robes. That's important because during that stretch, you don't want to give up the fun things of the world. You don't want to sit there and stop smoking, stop drinking, stop, messing around with a random woman here, a random woman there, going to, parties where you might meet a chick and you might do a little something and you might not talk to the chick ever again, or you might talk to her sparingly, or, just whatever stuff that people in their early to mid 20s do. You realize that you're not really ready to give those things up just yet, but eventually that stuff gets old the older you get, but you don't quite get to that point at 24 because you really in like one of the last years of the blunder years, and you're trying to make all of the blunders you possibly can before it's like, okay, I got to get this up. I got to be mature. I have to be responsible. I can't just spend my money willy-nilly on all of these different things and not save and not handle my business where I need to handle my business. So the next two lines are two of the most important lines when it comes to this whole conversation about the years after college for me, or the later years in the blunder years. So bi-weekly visits to the doctor wasn't popping, and neither was skipping student loans and garnishings the option. So bi-weekly visit to the doctor. During a stretch between 2003. No, I'll say 2002 and 2003. Because of the stress that I was dealing with, because of my not so great eating habits, because of so many different factors, staying up playing video games for long periods of time, sitting in front of a computer for long periods of time, all of these different factors put together, and it makes this cocktail of tension headaches, which progress to migraines, which progresses to TMJ. And anybody who knows anything about TMJ, a lot of times what ends up happening with TMJ, your jaw tightens. And so in order to prevent myself from getting headaches so frequently, I had to end up getting a mouth guard. But leading up to the point of having to get a mouth guard, leading up to the point where I ended up being diagnosed with TMJ, I just kept having all these headaches, and it seemed like every other week or once a week or twice a week, I was at Kaiser Permanente, like constantly going to the doctor complaining about, yo, I'm having these headaches. Yo, I'm having these tension headaches. Yo, I'm having these migraines. What's going on? Like, what do I do? I was out of work at my job for a month, out of commission. To go into work, it was a trigger for me because I felt like work was one of the things that had pushed me to that point where I had nonstop headaches. And then it was like all of the other things that I wasn't helping myself. Like I had sensitivity to light. Sometimes I would get nauseated from too much stimulation from light, whether it was from light from computers, light from television, light from outside, light from indoors. I had to a lot of times be in darkness because the light would bother me so much. It was that bad for a very long time. So that's one part of the bi-weekly visit to the doctor. Then you get later in the blunder years, closer to being out of the quote-unquote blunder years. Then it was a thing where I started dealing with kidney stones. And that became a thing. And so that sent me to the doctor regularly. And a lot of that had to do with not great eating habits. When I was eating right, I didn't really have an issue. But when I wasn't, Next thing you know, like, I'm at the doctor again. My 20s were not a good time for my health. It were probably the worst time for my health in my entire life. My 20s were trash for my health. And then you get to the line where I say, and neither was skipping student loans and garnishings the option. I came out of school with $4,500 worth of debt. Most of my friends who were coming out of school were coming out with tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And then you compound the people that I knew who went to grad school, which, you know, I had no desire to go to because I was tired after 4 years of college. But that $4,500, I skipped out on it. You know, like I was paying at first, and then after a while, like I just kept missing payments, especially when I left the DC Council and ended up working for Tower Records. Tower Records, I really wasn't getting a whole lot of money. So Sally Mae wasn't really getting no money from me. But then it got to a point where when I started working for the DC courts, I still wasn't paying Sally Mae frequently enough. So they got to the point where they were like, oh, you don't want to pay us? Cool, we're going to start garnishing your wages. When they started garnishing my wages, it was like, yo, whoa. I don't get a whole lot of money to begin with. Now y'all want to take my money. What's up with that? But at the end of the day, that was on me. I wasn't managing my money properly. I wasn't, and this is where the money part comes in. I wasn't saving my money. I had a situation that happened with that same ex-girlfriend that I broke up with, where she ran up a cell phone bill. I got a cell phone for her in my name. She ran up the bill to a certain amount. And because she didn't pay that amount, the cell phone company that I was dealing with, Singular, they slapped on all of these fees on top of the bill that was owed. And I think the total amount ended up being something like $2,900. But then they added some other stuff on it. And so I had to end up not only paying my bill because it was a discrepancy in how the bill worked or how the cell phone plan worked, but she ran the bill up to a certain degree. And then when we broke up, she refused to pay her part. So I was on the hook for paying her part because the cell phone was in my name. So I was dealing with that for years. Like my whole plan when I came out of college was that within a year, I wanted to move out of my mom's house and have my own house. I wanted a house. I didn't ever want to live in an apartment. I wanted a house. And so because of that situation, I got discouraged. And I was like, well, shoot, since I got to be paying all of this and all of that, you know, like I want to be able to live. Like I don't want to feel like all I'm doing is paying bills and saving and this and this and that and the third. So hence, it seemed like every month I was going to New York, going on a trip, or I was going hanging out. We was going shooting pool or go to the bar or go out to eat or whatever it might be. I was paying for hotel rooms when I was dating certain women. I was paying for hotel rooms and all of this stuff because I wanted to have fun. I wasn't thinking about the serious things. I put more stock in taking trips to New York or taking trips to New Jersey or taking trips to wherever than I did into saving money, into paying my Sally Mae bill so that I wouldn't have to have my wages garnished. I wasn't being a responsible adult. I was making all the possible blunders I could and then wondering why I was struggling the way that I was struggling. I wasn't managing my money properly at all. I was living with my mom. My mom had to twist my arm a lot of times in terms of me helping out with food. Like with, you know, I would pay a certain amount to help her out, but then I wasn't really giving her extra. I didn't take the initiative to help her out financially with other things without having to be told to do so. And so it was still living in that immature, childlike state, specifically coming out of college, because there were certain things I didn't have to worry about being in college because those things were already taken care of. But now I'm in the real world. And so now it's a thing of, okay, when are you going to stop acting like you're in college? When are you going to stop acting immature? When are you going to start acting like an adult? In a matter of 4 years, I had 4 different jobs, 3 main jobs. I worked for the DC Council, from 2001 to 2003. I worked at Tower Records from 2003 to 2004, and then I ended up at the DC courts where I still am today. The DC courts have been my longest tenured job that I've had in my career as a member of the workforce. But it took those first 3 years for me to stumble, for me to struggle, for me to make a whole bunch of mistakes, trying to learn how to adult, so to say, in order for me to get it right, to finally get it right. And I ain't even gonna say I still got it all the way right, but I have it a lot better now at 42 than I did at 22. So picking up where I say, what didn't help, twice a year I'd be back at school like I never left. You already know I'd act a fool. But when the women turn to girls nearly 6 years your junior, wait, when I walked the stage she was watching Nick Jr., you toss your little Dixie cup, fix you up quickly, cause discuss before the licks and have you spitting up quickly. So we gonna get real candid, real quick. So when I first graduated from Hobart and William Smith colleges, I was at school, if not once a year, twice a year, and sometimes more than that, depending on the year. I'll never forget when I went back in 2004. I was still kind of dating this girl, but we were going through some rough patches in our relationship. And so I went back, it was quite a few of my friends there. And so there was this girl that I met at a party. And I was 24 at the time. The girl was 18. Of course, you know, legal age, because I didn't play when it came to stuff like that. So, but that was my mentality. It was like, okay, well, you know, she's of age, 6-year difference, big deal, big whoop. At least that's what I was thinking, you know. So me and the girl, we ended up hooking up, and it was an interesting experience to say the least. But, you know, me being Mr. Honesty, I talked to the girl that I was still kind of sort of dealing with, and mind you, we had kind of a rough little go at it around Valentine's Day right before that. And we're talking like maybe 2 weeks before was Valentine's Day. And then I end up going to my college 2 weeks later. And so she had already kind of sort of had an issue with this one girl that I was friends with. But nothing was going on with me and the girl. But then I ended up being honest with her about what happened with this other girl. And so, of course, her antennas go up like, well, wait a minute. You're 24. How old was this girl? And I was like, well, she was 18. And she was like, 18? She was like, she's so young. She's so young. I'm like, but she's legally of age. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fair game. And she's like, well, my younger brother, he's the same age as her, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you know, when she kind of explained it like that, like basically like she was just in high school last year. She just turned 18 not long ago, and you're 24. And at the time, it was like, okay, it's fair game. We're all old enough at this point. And technically, by my definition, we're all in the blunder years. So it's still kind of, it's definitely fair game because we're all making mistakes. But I understood where she was coming from more so as the years went on. It's like, yeah, you know, that's where the line, when I walked the stage, she was watching Nick Jr., even though, you know, it wasn't quite that young. I mean, when I graduated from college, I was 21. She was 15. She wasn't watching Nick Jr. more than likely. but you know, it's an exaggeration of a line, so to say. But it's to drive the point home that she was still in a lot of ways much younger in terms of her maturity than I was. I'm 24. I've experienced a little bit more of the adult world than this girl has, just basically coming out of high school the year before. When I really gave thought to it, it kind of made me disgusted with myself, because here's where it gets deeper, is the fact that here I am still trying to live out my college days. And the girls don't get older, they get younger. And who wants to be the old man in the club, so to say? who wants to keep going back to my school every year? And next thing you know, I'm 30 and I'm still trying to holler at an 18-year-old. And it's like, nah, bruh. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's a 6-year difference. And I mean, when it comes down to it, my wife is 5 years younger than me. Would I have hollered at her? Probably. If I were 23 and she were 18, I probably would have hollered at her. Because at that time, my whole mentality would have been, she's 18. She's of age. She's old enough. She's technically an adult in the eyes of the law. That was the thing I cared the most about. I thought like a lawyer. It was like, okay, well, it's not illegal for me to deal with her. You know what I'm saying? It's not illegal for me to have sex with her. It's not illegal for me to, do a lot of things because we're both of legal age. But it's mentality. What's your mentality? And it was like, I think really her deeper point was, why are you still trying to be in the same mentality as somebody who just came out of high school? Not only are you not in high school anymore, but you've graduated college. And at this point, you've been in the adult world, the real world, for going on 3 years now. I started thinking to myself, thinking about the line, you toss them little Dixie cups, fix you up quickly. Because we got lit at that party. We all got lit. We all were drinking. We were all, people were smoking. People were drinking. People were having a good time, partying, like loosey-goosey with it. Like you weren't really necessarily thinking about the fact that, okay, here's this 6-year age difference between me and this girl that's a freshman or a first year in college. You're not thinking about that. You thinking about the fact that you get in play. You thinking about the fact you still the man. Because there's gonna come a time when you come back on your school campus when you not still gonna have that juice. That's what made me disgusted with myself and realizing like, I don't want to be that guy. Because I've seen guys, and I'm not gonna name nobody, of course, but I've seen dudes come back to our school. I've seen dudes come back to our school, and they are significantly older than girls that was my age when I was 18, 19, 20 years old as a first year student, sophomore student, junior student. And these dudes is in their 30s. Some of these dudes is like pushing their 40s and trying to holler at girls that's like half their age. I was hell-bent on not being that guy. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, nah. And so then wrapping up the song, the last couple of lines where I say, so get me, it's cool to just remember 21, but I don't even shop the store to feel forever 21. One and done. Though I often reminisce on that week, always missing my crew, but never missing that me. It's cool to just remember 21. Like going back to senior week, because that's where it comes back to. That was a cool time. That was a lot of fun. We wilded out. That senior week party that we had that week, we had the Jungle Juice, we had 99 Bananas, we had Bacardi 151, we had Captain Morgan, we had a little bit of everything, and that's all in the Jungle Juice. We was looking for some Everclear, we couldn't find Everclear. We were really trying to make this Jungle Juice something that just really had people stumbling. You know what I mean? Like 2 cups, people was done off the Jungle Juice that we made. The party was legendary as far as we were concerned. You know what I mean? But the thing is, every day can't be that. Every week can't be that. You can't keep living that week for the rest of your life. You can't keep chasing that high for the rest of your life. Eventually, you have to grow up. Eventually, it's not to say that you can't have a good time, but you have to learn moderation the older you get. And thinking about the line, but I don't even shop the store to feel forever 21. That's layered in and of itself. First and foremost, a lot of Forever 21 clothes I don't really care for anyway. That's the literal way of putting it. But you think of a lot of the clientele that's in that store. They're younger. I'm not trying to be in my 30s and 40s trying to be in a store that's meant for somebody that's significantly younger than me. Like, how do I look? It's kind of the same thing as like shopping at Last Stop. You know what I'm saying? At Iverson Mall or PG Plaza. I think they might have one. Yeah, I think they do have one in Forestville Mall. But anybody who's from the DMV know about Last Stop. When I was in my 20s, yes, Last Stop was catered to me. But now that I'm in my 40s, I'm not trying to shop at Last Stop. Because people half my age shop in that store now. You know what I mean? Like, I look crazy trying to shop in that store. It's the same thing with everything else. It's like you have to know your lane. You have to know what's for you and what's not for you anymore. And it's okay at the end of the day that those things aren't for you anymore. That it's okay to mature. It's okay to grow up. It's okay to not drink as much, not smoke as much, not hang out and party all the time. It's okay to do those things. It's okay to have a family and be responsible. It's okay to social drink. You know what I'm saying? Every now and then. It's okay to drink in your house. You know what I mean? Like, and just kick it with your friends. That's why I say always missing my crew, but never missing at me. A lot of times the friends that you make in college are the friends that you have for life. And one of my best friends, I've mentioned him multiple times. He's a huge amount of reason why I even have my moniker. That's my homie Country. We didn't have to do any of that in order for us to have a good time. A lot of our times that I really remember the most is when we just sat around, we had conversations. Me and him would kick it for like hours, easily. You know, a lot of times we break day. Now, granted, a lot of our fun times was going out and partying. But I didn't have to do that with him or most of my friends, most of my close friends in order to have a good time. I didn't have to smoke with them in order to have a good time. I didn't have to drink with them in order to have a good time. I didn't have to go chasing skirts with them in order to have a good time. I didn't have to go to the club with them to go have a good time. We were the good time. We were the vibe because we were friends. We were camaraderie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think about times that we've gotten together long after we graduated from college. I remember one time it was me, Country, my homie Shameen, and my homie Jay Rivera. We all hung out. I want to say it was in New York. And I think it was Jay. And we always say this anyway, is the fact that, you know, we hadn't seen each other in years at that point. But like physically seen each other years face to face, but we always had this ritual where we would always call each other on our birthdays. But I hadn't seen him for years, but when I saw him, it didn't feel like years since I had seen him. It felt like, you know, I hadn't seen him in like a week or something like that, you know, because when you have real friendship with people, when you have real connections with people, you don't need all of the extra stuff in order to make those connections strong or in order to validate those connections. Your connections, if they're strong and if they're pure and if they're genuine, they will last no matter how much time passes. But going back a line where I say one and done, though I'll often reminisce on that week, always missing my crew but never missing at me. The importance of the one and done line. I'm not going to get that time back. And I'm cool with that. Sometimes I really reminisce. Like lately, I knew because this whole series was coming up, these 2 episodes were coming up. And, you know, I start thinking about the music of the time that really put me in a certain mindset. I start thinking about where I was and like when the sun was beaming down a certain way. And I think about the snowstorms and trudging through the snow. And I think about times in the pub, and I think about times in the computer lab, and I think about times on the quad, and I think about times by the lake. I think about times at the holiday. I think about times at Wegmans. Everybody in the DMV who swears by Wegmans, let me tell y'all, well before we had it in the DMV, we were hip to it on 5 and 20 in Geneva. Like, that was the spot. If we couldn't get to the club, our whole thing was, hey, party in aisle 8. I don't remember what was in aisle 8, but that was the thing, party in aisle 8. You know what I mean? But the whole thing is all of those good times, all of those memories, going to Denny's, riding around in the car, carrying equipment up and down 4 flights of stairs, like all of these things that like really, that I remember. All of these different things that happened in college. They happened in college. It was during that time. That time is never coming back. I can't be a slave to that time going back to my conversations about leaving Alice. This song is not much different than leaving Alice. It's just talking about the college years. Both songs talk about not being a slave so much to nostalgia. This song just talks about it in a different way. This song talks about it in a way of you have to grow up. You don't become a man unless you learn how to be responsible. And you have to be responsible in every area of your life. You have to be responsible when it comes to your relationships, not just your romantic relationships, but your friendships, how you handle your friendships. You have to be a responsible son, because I was living with my mom and not handling my business in a lot of ways. I'm not afraid to come out and say those things. You know what I'm saying? Being 42 years old and looking back and looking at how immature I was during that time. You have to be responsible when it comes to how you navigate consuming alcohol, how you navigate smoking weed if you're gonna smoke weed, how you navigate driving up and down the highway and not driving like a bat out of hell because state troopers are on your behind. Or you could get into an accident, a serious accident, and hurt yourself or worse, or hurt somebody else in the car with you or worse. There are so many different things that you have to handle and you have to be responsible for, and you can't do the same way that you would have done in college because you're not in college anymore. That was a one-time thing, one-time deal. It's the same thing with every phase of life that we go through. That is a one and done. You're not getting that time back. Stop trying to relive that time and embrace the moments that you have right now. Embrace adulthood. Yeah, adulting sucks. Newsflash, breaking news. We all know that. Adulting does suck in a lot of ways. But in a lot of other ways, adulting can be a very beautiful thing. It's a matter of, do you look at it as struggle, or do you look at it as the potential for a lesson to be learned? That's really the beauty in growing up and maturing and doing things differently than you would have did it or you would have done it in your blunder years. And so that's why I say, always missing my crew, but never missing that me. That me, I don't miss that guy. That guy struggled with his health. That guy struggled with his finances. That guy didn't handle relationships extremely well. That guy thought he knew a lot, but realizes now he didn't know anything back then. You can't be that person anymore. That person that you still trying to be in your youth, you're not him, or you're not her, or you're not them. However you identify yourself. You are not that. I would hope you're not that anymore. And that's really the point of this song. You cannot live senior week forever. You want to keep those good vibes going, but you can create a new memory in the space of your life you're in right now. I don't want to move like a 21-year-old at 42. I'm not 21 anymore. And I'm glad I'm not 21 anymore. Do you all understand that when I turned 21, I could have easily had alcohol poisoning? That's how hard I partied when I turned 21. I threw up so much that night that I turned 20. I know I had like 20 drinks that night. And I had everything. They was giving me everything, mixing light, dark. It was just completely unsafe, completely irresponsible, and not the move. I'm not saying don't live, but what I am saying is eventually you're going to have to come out them blunder years. And you're going to have to come out them soon. You can't be in them forever. Sorry to disappoint you. Just like you can't be a kid forever. You can relive certain moments temporarily. But to try to relive those moments regularly, that's a problem. And it's not going to work for you. And that's all I got with this joint. Now, if you don't have my latest single, Take 37, back with what we've been talking about today, Senior Week Forever, you can go to the same website where you can go and get the batch gear that you see on me, this batch hat, and also this shirt, which I advertised on my Instagram and my TikTok, which says student of life for life, which is perfect for the conversation today because it's beyond being in school. We're always in school because life is school. We're always learning lessons. So you a student of life for life. And of course, got the BSU on the side like so. And of course, the batch logo on the other side. You can get all of this stuff at the same website, BAMMLLC.net. Once again, that is BAMMLLC.net. Get the music, get the merch, you get the music. You can go to your favorite streaming site, or if you're a Bandcamp person, you can connect from there, or you can go directly to my Bandcamp page, which is ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. Once again, that's ajthrowback.bandcamp.com. If this is your first time watching any of my content on YouTube, thank you first and foremost for watching me. Second of all, please make sure that you like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that bell notification so whenever I go live, post a new video, premiere a new video, you'll be among the first to know. And if you're not already following me on social media, hit me up. Facebook, Twitter, I am at AJThrowback. And on Instagram and TikTok, I am at a.j.throwback. Follow me on all the platforms. I do follow back as long as you on the up and up. So next week, actually before we get to next week, tomorrow, I release a new single tomorrow called Jason's Lyric featuring my brother, Michael Jalil. It is a song that is about my son named Jason. This is the song that I'm the most excited about out of every song that I'm releasing for this whole Late Bloomer project. Definitely excited to finally release this song. It means so much to me. I know I say all of my songs are personal. This is the most personal of all. So definitely looking forward to that. And that single is going to be backed with Rolling Blackout. And then next week, in connection to the new release, we'll be talking about Jason's Lyric, breaking down the first verse. Definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in, for all the support that you've been throwing my way, whether it's been with the music, with the merch, or with the Maximum Sentence. Where there's conviction behind the bars, I'm definitely appreciative of all the love, all the support. Once again, my name is AJ Throwback. It has been a pleasure to be here with you today. And until next week, I hope that y'all enjoy the rest of y'all week. Enjoy your weekend. Make sure you get that new single when it drops tomorrow. Please. Much appreciated. And I'm going to see y'all next week. Peace.
You toss your little Dixie cup, fix you up quickly, cause discuss before the licks you have you spitting up quickly. So get me, it's cool to just remember 21, but I don't even shop the store to feel forever 21. One and done, though I often reminisce on that week, always missing my crew, but never missing that me.